everyone. Welcome back to the Optimization Toolbox Podcast. My name is Jenna Redfield. Today I'm going to be doing another individual episode where I'm going to be coming to you. I've been wanting to make an episode like this for a while because I had some thoughts in the last couple of weeks and I just thought this would be a great place to share them. So the main thing I want to talk about today is talking about holding yourself back in terms of so many people do this kind of intentionally, but also unintentionally, right? You have a big dream and you want to pursue something, but something's stopping you. And I want to talk about what that could be and how to overcome that because it's happened to me many, many, many times. But then there's also things where I feel like there hasn't been something that's held me back that I've seen other people be held back by. So I kind of want to talk about the differences. So this got started, because I keep hearing the same word over and over again. And it just, whenever that happens to me, it's a thing called synchronicity where you keep, seeing the same thing over and over again. This is happening to me multiple times in the last couple of weeks where I've heard the word ask for permission many times. Like I've heard it so many times that it's kind of like, all right, like this is something. The first time I heard it was when I got a DM from somebody telling me that listening to my podcast episode where I talked about transforming my life gave her permission to make changes in her life. And I was very taken aback because I thought to myself, why do you need my permission? Why do you need anyone's permission? Why can't you just do it? Then I heard it again last week or 2 weeks ago at my event when Kurt Schmidt, who was on our panel, talked about how he felt like he had to ask the world for permission to start his podcast. And again, I heard that word ask for permission and I'm like, oh man, I just heard that recently. And then I'm not kidding you. 2 days later, I had someone come up to me at an event, told me that she had listened to my podcast and it gave her permission to follow her dreams and change her life. And I'm just thinking to myself, gosh, why are so many people asking for permission? Why is this a thing? And it made me realize it's not something I've ever had to struggle with, but there's other things that I have like internally been held back by. So I want to talk about some of those, but let's talk about asking for permission for a second. When I heard that term, I was like, well, why are people waiting to be told yes or no by the world, right? I think what I realized is society has conditioned us to have to ask for permission for things. In school, we had to raise our hand to go to the bathroom. Like we weren't allowed to just make our own decisions. And up until we graduated from college, we kind of had to follow the rules of life. We had to go to class. We had to, take tests and all that stuff. And then once you graduate, you're like, what? I have options. I have choices. I can go the corporate route or I can be an entrepreneur. You can literally do whatever you want with your life. And some people get very uncomfortable with that feeling because we've never had that in our entire lives. From when we were very, very young children, we were told what to do. And the moment that we graduate college is the moment when life is open up to us and we do not know how to handle it. Think about it. You probably followed what everyone told you. Go into corporate America, do this, do this. You are listening to the world to tell you what to do. And for me, that was broken the moment that I tried to get a job in corporate and no one would hire me. And I was like, wait, what? Like everyone told me this is what I need to do. And then the world's telling me, nope, you're not qualified. So then I went the entrepreneur route, really realized that this is what I love doing. And it's like my entire life was flipped on its head because I'd never expected to be an entrepreneur. I would have gone to school to be an entrepreneur if I had known that. But it wasn't until after I graduated that immediately I realized, oh, my life is mine now and I can make the decision. And I think some people, it takes longer for them to realize this. And it's not until they are given the opportunity or, they have an idea for something and then they're like, wait, could I actually do that? Or they see somebody else doing something that they want to do. And they're like, wait, I can actually do that. It's almost like you have to see it to believe it. And I think I've been doing that for so long since I graduated, which has been almost 10 years that I forget that there's a mindset of, oh, wait, I can just follow my dreams. Oh, I can just try something and see if it works. Oh, I can start my own business on the side. I really think that by seeing people, hopefully like myself, like make content like this, where I'm saying, I'm giving you permission, but also you don't need to ask me for it. You don't need to listen to me telling you that you can do something. You should just know it in yourself. You should just be able to do it yourself and not have to wait for anyone. If you have to wait for permission every single time you do something, you're never going to do it, because no one is giving you. I think Kurt said it in his speech. He's like, no one cares. No one cares enough. They're worried about their own stuff. If you really want to pursue something, just do it. Don't ask for permission. Like the Nike saying, just do it. You might fail. Yes, that is probably a consequence. You may fail, but you also might succeed. You also might learn something. You also might figure out what you want to do. And that is just as important. So one of the things I want to talk about in this very short podcast episode, I'm trying to keep this under 15 minutes probably, is I went to LA last week. And if you didn't know, I lived in LA for 5 months in 2013. And I was a junior in college. And I was so excited to go back because I was like picturing the places I used to live, the places I worked, all that stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get to go visit. When I went there, it was very underwhelming to me. Not LA itself, but just going back to the places I used to live. It didn't have the feeling that I thought I would bring. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I had this realization that time and place existed in the past and it will never happen again. It's a memory and that's it. I can go to the physical locations, but I can't go back to that memory. Number two, I live in a bubble when I live there. I lived in an absolute bubble where I did not expand outside of my circle, outside of my area of town that I lived in and where my internship was. I stuck to those two spots. I went out maybe a couple other times with my roommates only. I didn't venture out by myself much. And I realized it's because I was so scared. I was so scared. And then it hit me yesterday, and I was driving home from a trip out to, I was like on a walk with my friends to a place I've been to many times. And it made me feel like a tourist in my own city in some ways, because we were exploring some new paths and things that I had never been on. And I realized, oh my gosh, I never, for most of my, I guess, younger years, went outside of my comfort zone. I stuck to my comfort zone. I stuck to my bubble. I call it my bubble. It's funny because the college I went to, there was it was, the rest of the world called it a bubble. Like literally it was a fact that my school existed in a bubble. And I probably subconsciously chose that school because I knew that there was a bubble there and I didn't have to go out of it. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s when I slowly started venturing outside of my bubble that I realized, hey, it's not as scary out here. And only in the last, maybe since the pandemic, when we were kind of forced into a bubble, that I realized, oh, I don't like this. I want to get outside my bubble. I want to grow. And so the last couple of years, that's the reason I changed the name of this podcast to the Optimization Toolbox, is I want to optimize. I want to up-level. I want to grow. I want to improve myself. That's why I've been reading so many self-help books the last couple of years. I want to be the best version of myself. And I want to get outside my comfort zone. And going on this trip to LA made me realize, oh my gosh, I want to explore new parts of LA. I want to try new things because that's what you remember is the new experiences. I have so many more memories of the things I did one time in LA than I did the things I did over and over and over again every day, right? One of my favorite quotes is, you don't remember the nights that you went to bed early. Like you remember the nights that you went out and did stuff. And that was my mantra through my 20s was I was like, I want to try new things. And I don't know when that flip switched, but it definitely was a dimmer switch to me until I feel like I'm at this point where the light switch has been completely turned on in terms of I want to try as many new things as I can now. You only get one life, right? I'm in my 30s now. And I think I really did spend my 20s in a good way. I'm very proud of how I spent my 20s, but now I'm in my 30s. I'm like, all right, well, what do my 30s look like? What does the rest of my life look like? What do I want? And I'm at that point where I'm like, I don't know, which has been very interesting to not know what you want. But I also am like, well, what do I like? One of the things I've realized is I do want to continue to grow. That's that I know for a fact is one of my values right now is I want to continue to learn and grow and teach what I learn. Because here's the thing, I'm seeing so many people not getting the lessons I'm learning. And so it's like, how do I find the nuggets, those little pieces that I want so badly others to know, and package them in a way that they will understand. And that is, in my opinion, is my life journey and is my life purpose. And I've never said that out loud. And I'm getting a little emotional because I'm like, I really think that my life purpose is to find the reasons for existing and share that with others in terms of the way that you can best live your life. And that's in every way. That's why this podcast is me figuring out, okay, I need to go to the experts in the things that I want to learn about and have them come here. Last week's episode with Jake was a game changer. If you haven't listened to it, even if you're not neurodivergent or a multipotentialite, you should listen to this podcast because it will help you understand those who are. Because that podcast changed me in some ways that I didn't realize. Was I was so used to hearing from the world saying, you have to do this one thing, you have to niche down. And in that podcast, he's like, no, you don't have to do that. And maybe that was him giving me permission without saying it. Maybe I do need permission, or maybe I just needed a different perspective. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're not asking for permission. Maybe we're just getting a different perspective. But I didn't have to say, oh, Jake, can I do that? No, I didn't ask him permission. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm willing to do that. But I think that going back to the asking for permission idea is we need to stop letting society dictate what we do. One of the things I realized, so when I went out to LA, one of the things I realized is I was kind of overhearing and eavesdropping a little bit on conversations like in the airport and stuff. So much of what people talk about is how much they're trying to win the approval of others. Whether that's the cars that they buy, the plastic surgery that they're doing on their face. Everyone is doing something to impress other people. That's honestly what I think is driving much of capitalism. It's really funny. I went to the Grove, which is my favorite store in LA. Like I used to walk there all the time. And after about 10 minutes walking around, I'm like, I don't want to be here. Back then, I loved that place so much. I would go there all the time. And I'm like, this is such it's all these really expensive stores. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy any of this stuff. I don't need any of this stuff. Why am I here? And then and then that evening I went and hiked because I'm like, I want to be in nature. And that is such a mind flip from when I was 10 years ago where I just wanted to be shopping all the time. And now I'm like, no, I want to get out of this. I'm sick of capitalism in some ways. Like I'm sick of having to buy things all the time. It's just, anyways, rant. I think that, for me, that was another thing that I learned about myself is back then I would have never in a million years gone hiking. I would have never sought that out. I would have never gone on walks just for pleasure. And I've changed so much in 10 years since I lived there. And I think that the only way, and I'm really glad I went because I was able to have this realization. I was able to like literally the last time I stepped foot in Los Angeles was May of 2013, which is almost exactly a year ago. And I was a completely different person. So I've only had Los Angeles from that time period in my life. And now I have a new experience from this period in my life. And I'm able to look at it with such different lenses and different views because I've lived life. I have learned how to network. When I lived in LA, oh gosh, this story grinds my gears. There was this woman that came in and taught us networking tips. Like she came in, I had to sign up I think we had to pay extra for this class. And she was teaching us all of these really weird networking techniques. And it just terrified me. I was like, oh, networking sounds so scary. Again, in my bubble, I was like, I don't want to do that. And it wasn't until after I graduated and I was forced to network that I realized, hey, this is kind of fun. It's going up to people and asking how they are, asking what they do, and then I became a networking machine. And that's what most people know me for, is I know everyone. My friends tease me all the time. Oh, do you know someone here? You probably know someone here. I just know so many people because I've met so many people through the years, especially here in Minnesota. But I realized I was like, networking to me has such a bad rap. I was watching that Netflix show, How to Be Rich, which I highly recommend. And the guy was doing all these informational interviews, and there was something he said. He was like, wow, it's so easy to just talk to people and ask them questions. And then they're giving me connections to people that work at the companies I want to work for. And I'm like, why isn't this being taught in college? like, why isn't networking the right way being taught in college? Like, yes, they tried to teach it to us. It was a terrible, terrible way of explaining it. I wish I had experienced it. I wish that I had experience in college of networking before I graduated, had absolutely no job lined up because I had no network, and then was forced to network, learned I love networking, and made it a huge part of my business. Like, I wish I had gotten that a few years earlier. That would have been nice. But again, we can't, dwell on the past. And that's the other thing that I learned. I can't dwell on the past. The past is the past, and it's not coming back. And me going to LA, trying to relive the glory days of when I lived there, didn't happen. But I had a new adventure. I actually had a better experience than I thought because I was able to be like, all right, I'm here for 10 minutes to the place I used to live. Let's try something new. Let's go someplace I haven't been before. There's so many, like, LA is huge. I went to the Getty Center, which was probably one of my favorite places I went on my whole trip. And I was like, why did I never go here? Why did I never go here? It just blew my mind that I never had been there. And it was a free place that had existed when I lived there. And I just never got around to going there. Anyways, I just think that for me, realizing that the world is wide, I can get outside of my bubble is so important. And I think that one of the things that I'm going to be working on over the next couple of years is figuring out how to explain this to people in terms of the things that I feel are so important in the lessons I've learned. I wish that I had had what I knew now at 21. I don't know if it would have stuck with me, but I wish I had had at least some information to know a little bit more than I did then. And that's what I want to write to a 21-year-old. I want to write information that might save them several years of hardship or of having to learn things the hard way, which I think it does help you develop things. But I also feel like there's times where I wish I could have been further along than I am now. And that's always my goal for people is I would like, if I could be further along than I am now, I would choose that. And I think there's other people like me too. So anyways, that is what I want to talk about today. Stop asking for permission. Do what you want to do. Try it. If you fail, you fail. You learn from it. You can make a change whenever you want. You can literally stop doing what you're doing right now and change. I talked about it in that episode. You should listen to it about how I transformed my life in 1 year. It was a moment that I made that change. And I said, I don't want to live this way anymore. It was my rock bottom of my 20s. I guess was I 20? I think I was 29. Or no, I just turned 30, I think. So it was like kind of like that accumulation of my 20s into being 30. I kind of had a midlife